And for Ghana, we thought that it is important for us to try and learn lessons in the past decade. So one aspect of the work that we have done is to look back between 2009 and 2018. What can we learn from what has been happening as far as nutrition? But we also want to look forward. What are the kind of changes that we need to be anticipating? And along with change also comes challenges. So what kind of challenges should we be thinking about? It used to be that our main challenges were undernutrition. Now, we are not talking only about undernutrition, we're also talking about overnutrition. So it's a double burden. And then we need to look at what would drive political commitment, policy, and program coherence, because it looks like there are many sectors, everybody is doing something. But how do you make that productive? So that's the kind of evidence that we are collecting as part of our stories of change. If it's a stories of change, what then is the story? What story do you focus on? And that was the very first task we set ourselves. And I'll show you how we arrived at a story. But in Ghana, we decided to look at two stories. We wanted to look at the story of how has stunting reduced in Ghana. And everywhere that I go in international meetings, people talk about the fact that Ghana has reduced its stunting. In fact, about 6 years ago, I wrote in the Global Nutrition Report, I was approached to write a paper to explain why did the stunting reduce in Ghana. And at that time, we were just pulling at straws because we didn't have the evidence. And so we needed to answer that question. We also focused on anemia, which we know is currently a big challenge that we need to look at, but we're focusing on children under 5. And this is how we arrived at choosing the story of stunting and anemia. We chose those because first we went to stakeholders. We selected about 10 of the multi-stakeholder groups in health, agriculture, social protection, and we went to them and said, what do you think has changed, in your opinion, in Ghana? We asked them broadly, what has changed in Ghana in the last 10 years? And then we asked them questions about what do you think has changed in the nutrition landscape? And consistently, it was mentioned that stunting has changed. And the evidence in the DHS shows stunting has changed. But we also learned that in the case of anemia, it has changed, but it has changed very little. For us, that was another important story because over the same period, by the same institutions, stakeholders, we've managed to be able to reduce stunting significantly, but we couldn't do the same thing with anemia, and I'll show you the data shortly. Around that same time, there was also the idea that we need to be looking at the fact that there's reduced maternal and child deaths. Again, that was also quite significant. But then there was also this idea of emerging overweight and obesity. And that was attributed to the fact that we have been able to reduce undernourishment, for which our former president, Jay Kufuor, got an award for that. And then but along with that, we are also having a westernization of our diets. Some of it is actually also indigenous because of the kind of practices that we are associated with our diets. So that was important for us to follow on. But we needed to look deeper, so we also looked at what are the policies, the policy process that have driven this change that we saw. And so we had conversations about policy, the national nutrition policy, and the process for its development. But then there were other opportunities that were mentioned, like the National Scaling Up Nutrition Multi-Stakeholder Platform that came about in 2011, and other opportunities that brought stakeholders together to start thinking about this. And I get a feeling that this place where we are right now, we have been here before, and we need to figure out how did we lose track of where we were. We also looked at interventions. It was mentioned that some of the interventions have been key in addressing this change that we saw. But one thing that surprised us was also the recognition that there's generally a social and development improvement in the country, and the people consider that the fact that we have opened up the airways, people can have access to information, there's access to roads, electricity, all these broad social development is also contributing to that. So then we said, okay, this is what is going to be the reason why we focus on stunting and anemia, so that we can dig deeper into these issues. And we started the study in 2018, and we brought some of you in this room were at the inception meeting where we discussed how to get information, who to talk to, and we got very useful feedback to start us off. And I just want to walk you through the process that we have gone through. So essentially, we started with a stakeholder consultation in 2018. That consultation also involved talking to the 10 stakeholders to be able to understand what story we should focus on. Then we did a decomposition analysis, a statistical analysis of existing data. We also looked at a desk review, which is where the policies and publications on policies and programs were looked at. We did a net map analysis of people who are engaged, different stakeholders who are engaged in the nutrition sector, to understand the relationships across stakeholders. And then we also did, okay, so that's part of the policy program analysis. That's what we did, the desk reviewing. And then we also had in-depth interviews, and we've talked to many of you here to try and get feedback on what explains, what are the drivers of the change, the stories that we focused on.